Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is week 2, my wrap up for November 2024. I've finished a couple more books. I finished 5 books this week. I know I'm slowing down, but I have a couple arcs that are in progress right now. The Best Science Fiction and Fantasy Short Stories of 2024. Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy Short Stories 2024. That I'm 2/3 of the way done with, and it's excellent. And a couple others that I started and then prioritized books that I needed to get to before the arcs expired and stuff. So I expect to finish a few more books in the 3rd week of November. Closer to 10 instead of, 6-ish. Closer to my reading pace from earlier months. Because I've kind of dropped off a little bit. We had some, not exactly chaos, but one of my housemates had a medical thing that we had to deal with that took a few days and was distracting, and so I had to dog sit. I don't have dogs. Me and dogs, we tolerate one another. Although I have to admit, one of them's kind of cute. But they're much happier now that their human is back, and I don't have to dog sit them anymore. It's very nice. So that was a bit distracting. I didn't get a lot of really solid reading done the entire 2+ days that I was in charge of all the animals. So not terribly surprising. I also got distracted because it snowed a little over a week ago, and I realized that I could only find one sweater. Because when I reorganized my closet last month, for some reason I didn't think I would need my sweaters as soon or something. I don't know what I was thinking, because obviously I couldn't actually get to most of my sweaters till I completely reorganized my closet again. So I got distracted with that, and while I was at it, I was like, well, I've been meaning to try doing a capsule wardrobe for a while. As I live in a part of the U.S. that doesn't have nice organized seasons. We have 4 seasons, but they may happen all in the same week. So we can't really put away winter clothes for summer and put away summer clothes for winter entirely. And it makes it so that everything ends up clogging the closet. So I love the idea of a capsule wardrobe, and I'm trying it. Not to the point where I put away everything else, just I set certain things together on one of those rolling racks, so that I have the wardrobe I'm actually wearing. And then if I really need something that I didn't include in it, it's in the closet. But the rolling rack is in front of the closet, so it's easier to just get the stuff off the rack. Sort of psychological engineering, I'm more likely to go with the stuff I can get to without having to move the rack. Anyway, so that all took time. That was not books. So it's not surprising that I only finished 5. And one of the books I finished is one you guys may remember if you've been following my channel for a bit. Remember this book from last year? Yes, it was on my TBR for November of last year. I'd already started it. I'd read 1 Caesar and the introduction. I was going to finish it in November. I finished 1 more Caesar. And then it stayed on my TBR for several months until I finally conceded I wasn't getting to it and gave up, and it's been sitting unfinished ever since. So even though it's only 1 book, it's an accomplishment in and of itself. This book is done. It gets to go to my sister at the end of the month, and I don't have to see it again unless I want to. The other print book that I get to unhaul at my sister at the end of the month is The Perfect Storm. Let's see if I can get it so the glare doesn't wash out the book. There we go. Glare is off the book. Perfect Storm by Sebastian Junger. This one is about a storm from October 1991 that happened off the coast of the U.S. and Canada in the Atlantic Ocean. It was not officially a hurricane. I don't think at all, really. I don't think it was ever a named hurricane storm. But it basically was a hurricane that spun up in the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean, which is weird and very rarely happens. And took everyone by surprise. It was off-season, and they didn't have satellites the way we have now, so they couldn't just look at it. So the beacons that they were getting data from would be just the little floaty things that float in the ocean and send back data. So if the storm is between them, the storm doesn't get picked up until it's either big enough to nudge one of the beacons or crosses one of the beacons. So that comes into play in how this storm was so devastating and why so many fishermen were out in the path of it, because they literally had no idea there was a storm coming. It didn't even exist until right before it hit. Craziness. And resulted in deaths and loss of ships, and the Coast Guard was deployed and the Navy rescue team was deployed. There's a section all about the rescue team and the training they go through. And when a 5-man team from this group, from the Navy rescue team, I think there may be another name for them, but I'm forgetting. Anyway, 5 of their people were lost at sea when their helicopter got into trouble. And of them, only 1 didn't make it back because of all of their amazingly hardcore training. The kind of stuff that reminds me of a Clive Cussler novel, which is funny because I also read the new Clive Cussler Desolation Code this week by Graham Brown, and therein lies the confusion. Oh my goodness. So I've been reading Clive Cussler for years. Not since he started writing. He started writing before I was born, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I got into Clive Cussler maybe 10, 15 years ago. But I've been reading mostly backlog books lately, not the newest ones. So I kind of lost track of what was going on in the various series, but I saw Clive Cussler on the Netgalley. I was like, oh, I haven't read one of those for a while. Let's see what's going on this time. And this is one that it is Graham Brown writing it. He's the author. And my guess is Clive Cussler's notes are somewhere involved in this story. They were co-authoring quite a few books before Cussler died in 2020, if I believe. So this one, the confusion is where they put Clive Cussler's name. Because he's not really the author, but it's still Clive Cussler's series, which I totally get that. Continuing series by now deceased authors is awkward. But the way they did it this time, they put Cussler's name at the beginning of the title. So Clive Cussler Desolation Code as the title in Netgalley and in Goodreads. And that is how it appears on the book cover. But it's awkward. So it'll be interesting to see if they evolve a more straightforward, less confusing way of doing that, or how long it takes for it just to be like the Pneuma Files by Graham Brown, instead of having to have Clive Cussler in giant letters on the cover. Not that I want Clive Cussler's name off the cover, but as far as talking about the book, that proved to be really awkward, because everybody knows Clive Cussler is an author, so okay, is it 2 authors, or are we talking about 2 books, or what's going on? So anyway, that's just a quibble, and it's just something that's logistics that different authors and publishers handle it differently, and I'm not sure there is a one right way, but that was awkward. It was a fun book, very sci-fi. I was not expecting it to be so strongly landed in the sci-fi genre, because that's not really where the Clive Cusslers that I'm familiar with have landed. There actually are a few, like Dirk Pitt, Clive Cussler, original series kind of books that have aliens in them. Not aliens like live aliens, but like alien artifacts. They pop up randomly, just, little Easter egg sort of things in different books. There's a mine in the Colorado mountains that has a chamber with, alien, like desiccated corpses and artifacts in it. And there's a similar space in a cave and an island off of Antarctica that has the same kind of setup. And I forget all the locations where these happen. There might have been one in Central America, but the aliens were everywhere, but there's not really much information to go on to know what they were up to or anything. Just aliens randomly in adventure books that are more about diabolical plots and politics and adventure. It's not out of keeping with the series to be sci-fi, but this one was cloning and AI and new technology to control not just climate change, but the results of the diabolical plot. So it's very much like comic book sort of adventures. The heroes are like superheroes, but they're ordinary, everyman sort of superheroes. They're scientists that just happen to be like secret agent qualified. And the bad guys are true bad guys. They're evil. They might have backstories that make them, not totally caricatures, but they're evil, and their plots are equally evil and diabolical, and the entire fate of the human race is at stake, and none of that is that unusual for Clive Cussler books, but it's brought out a lot more in this one than I was expecting. I enjoyed it. I read a lot of sci-fi. I'll be curious to see how the readership for these books shifts if this is the direction that the Pneuma Files especially is going. Maybe it will be just, shelved in sci-fi. This one, if I was just shelving this book, not having read any other Clive Cussler books, I would be putting it in the sci-fi section in a bookstore, for sure. So that was interesting. I also read Berlin 2013, the United States of Europe Power Games, or the U.S.E. Power Games, by Isai Amorim. I believe that's right. This one was an alternate reality set in Europe, in which certain Western European countries come together in something not that different from the European Union, except that it's not. And it's not a federation. It's like all one country, sort of. And it was very confusing to me as someone who studied political science, because they dissolve all the capital cities in all the countries that join the U.S.E, which is crucial to the plot because it's why Berlin is economically impoverished, because it's no longer a capital. And so the fact that they are bidding for being the city that gets the 2021 Power Games, like the Olympics, but just Europe, I guess. Why this is so out of character, because why would Berlin think that they could get it? And yeah, but there were issues that I, as someone who studied political science, had specifically with it. I never really got over the why are you dissolving all of the capital cities question. It didn't make sense to me. And the pacing was really off. There's one point where the text says that the pace picks up in the story at this point. Did it? No. No, it absolutely did not. There's way too much tedious dialogue. Dialogue in novels ideally doesn't start with hi, and then go through all of the small talk and all of the actual meat of the conversation, and then well, it's nice talking to you, and yeah, we'll talk again, and whatever, and then bye, and then they hang up the phone. That's a lot of detail in that conversation. If all I need to know is like 5 or 6 sentences in the middle, that's what I need to cut in on. We need to pan to the person on the phone, they're talking, and cut into their conversation. This is what's going on. Or a summary of the conversation after the fact. We don't need to be a fly on the wall for every single conversation. And I think that alone slowed the book down really bad. Really badly, I should say, since I'm being nitpicky. I know. But yeah, with some serious editing, this could have been a much better book. I gave it 4 stars anyway, but I was being slightly generous. It was a 3.75 in my rating. But that rounds to a 4 in Goodreads, so that works. But yeah, needs editing for pacing, if nothing else. And if it is crucial that Berlin not be a capital, I need more explanation for why they think that they don't need local capitals for each of the countries participating in this United States of Europe. Because the name itself, to me, says individual states that have come together in a coalition government of some sort, in which case there needs to be some sort of capital location in each of the participating states, because they are going to need individual administration, even just to implement the policies that are set by the central government. You have to have some sort of local government, entity, even if it's just a lower tier on the hierarchy from the central government in the U.S.E. capital. So that made no sense to me. And because it was stressed as being so important to the story, it was central in my mind as a problem. Maybe it wasn't even necessary to the story, but the author says that it is. So not terrible, not the best book I've read, but it was okay. And then the other, I read Greenmantle. Greenmantle was just as a LibriVox audiobook by John Buchan, same guy that wrote the 39 Steps, which is on the 1001 Books You Must Read Before You Die list, and the Guardian 1000 Novels, I believe. Greenmantle is on the Guardian list. So I did finish a book on a list. It's not nonfiction. It's not an arc. But I needed a break. So I did. And I needed an audiobook because this month has been alarmingly audiobookless so far. And I think that's part of where my numbers are dropping a little bit. I did find the audiobook for the Sebastian Junger book. So I was listening to chapters, and then when I wanted to read in a different part of the house, I'd take my book with me and read it. And the 12 Caesars, I was also switching between the LibriVox audio and my book. My book is a different translator, so I definitely could not immersive read it. The gist of each paragraph would be the same, but the translations differed markedly in their word choice and syntax. So I did read some of it with eyeballs still, but the print is very small and the pages are yellowing, and so the contrast is very bad. So you can't really read it in just any lighting. And my eyes are 40-something-year-old eyes, and they do complain about these things, which they didn't used to. Eventually I might get bad enough to actually look into glasses. Need glasses? I don't know. But not yet. Anyway, so that was what I read. And I am probably just gonna leave the best American sci-fi and fantasy short stories of 2024 in this grouping. If there was a particular story that I really need to talk about, I might still bring it up in the next update, but it will be done probably in the next reading sprint that I dive back into. So I'll just assume that it's part of this group. And I'm going to try to do an update video on the 22nd, which means it will be less than 7 days from now. We'll see if it happens, because I want to get back on track to where the day after the week is done, I'm posting the video so that I'm not gradually getting further and further off from my schedule. We'll see if it happens. But so far, this is my print books that I've finished. See if I can get it where the glare doesn't wash out everything. Yay! There we go. So, only 3 print books so far, but it's progress. And these 3 books are on my own shelves, which means that they do count towards the Read What You Own challenge. Even though this month is probably not going to make a lot of progress towards that because of the arcs and because so many of my books are going to be, ebooks and audiobooks. It's going to be less than usual, but I am trying to do the nonfiction, and so far all of the print books are nonfiction, so staying on track. I will catch you guys either in sprints somewhere on the Netgalley November sprints, which are 24/7 for the rest of the month. Oh my goodness. Or I'll see you on the 22nd. Hopefully you're having great reading, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye, guys!